1 second. Alrighty, we are live. This is the first group chat for group 8. There are 4 of us here. We're missing 2 people, unfortunately. Um, this this week's topic is about good qualities of leadership and poor qualities of leadership. I don't know if anybody wants to just jump in and start. If you've had any experiences, or I can start with good leadership. Anybody like to volunteer? All righty, I'll go ahead and go first.
I've been pretty fortunate to have a lot of really good leaders, and a lot of times you can tell they have a lot of passion behind what they're doing. They have a lot of motivation behind it versus when you just have an appointed leader. A lot of the people that I've worked for have worked to get to that spot, and so there's a lot more meaning behind it. I think that really helps make a good leader.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. One of the things I wrote down was like for poor qualities in leadership is I've worked in a few call centers in my life, and there's often times where there's people who start at the same position as me on the phones, let's say, and they're doing good and they get promoted to manager, and they sort of stop working. They sort of stop trying to achieve the goals. They feel like they're in a higher authoritative position, so they don't have to do the same work. Whereas I find good leaders are the ones who would take charge with their team instead of just having their team pull the sled with them on the back.
Do you think that's more in line with like servant leadership?
Yeah.
That's been my observation is different types of leaders, the ones I've enjoyed working for the most, have more of a servant leadership style. So they tend to take care of the group. They're not certainly pushovers, but they have been there often and done that, so they're more empathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crystal, I cut you off. Or I'm sorry, Ambry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine. I just wanted to piggyback on just in terms of leadership and just kind of having leaders who are pretty much consistent. I think consistency is definitely a good quality for a leadership position. When you're being inconsistent, that's when you're kind of shifting priorities, or your personality or just how you interact with individuals change. And that can definitely cause kind of like a rift within like a group of people. So I feel like consistency is something that is definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally on that.
And another thing is leading by example, right? You're always told to lead by example. If you have a leader who is telling you to do all these things and then their behavior is the opposite, then then you don't have team members who want to follow you. You don't have good followers.
Right. You don't want a hypocritical, leader at all, or someone who pretty much micromanage. I feel like even though you're in a position of a leadership or a position of leadership, you're still a part of a team. So you kind of have to act accordingly to the team as well, and also pick up slack and things like that. You can't just take your leadership role, to the extreme and think that in a sense you're more superior than the other people, because it takes everybody to, reach the common goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I also had there was one that I wanted to bring up, one example that I just recently left a job where my team manager, my manager was just, he lied a lot and he had a lot of poor integrity. He focused a lot on just hitting the goals rather than like trying to supplement our customers and bringing the customers back. And I found a good quote on it. It was, integrity is the most valuable and respected quality of leadership. Always keep your word. It doesn't matter how capable, intelligent, or effective a leader is. If they lack moral integrity, troubles are bound to follow. And I found that to be really interesting because we always had troubles coming back when with his poor integrity. He was such a bad leader in that retrospect that we were always having to clean up his issues. I don't know if if anybody's dealt with something similar like that.
I can say, I can say that I have, while working within the hotel industry, I had a manager, obviously, in a leadership position where I felt like she did operate in a lot of just kind of being false and things like that. So integrity wasn't something that was her good trait. and it pretty much just kind of corrupted like the whole staff or part of the staff. And then those who are trying to operate, according to policies and rules and just being honest and fair, it was kind of hard to do that when you had, the lady at the top, kind of being a little more corrupt.
Yeah, the trickle down management.
Yeah.
They say integrity is what you do when no one's looking. I always kind of liked that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
I used to work in the government, and there's definitely a lot of corrupt people.
That's scary to hear.
Not the best.
No, it's interesting you mentioned that. We have in our organization, so I work for State Farm, and we promote from within. And usually, as people work their way up, that is something that trips up a lot of people because we have a very high level of integrity and expectation. And at times, people have lost their careers because of a lack of integrity, and not for things like you would think, like embezzling or things like that, but for not following through on promises or making commitments that weren't right for the organization or were right for the organization, but were really harmful to their people. And so it's one of the things I enjoy about the leaders that I see above me is I know they've been through that kind of same experience and been held to that level of expectation, which gives us a lot of trust and faith in our leadership, which is something I haven't always had in every organization I've worked in. So integrity is huge.
Yeah, I believe it's got to be one of the most important. Next to, I think integrity is right up there with good communication skills. I always find that good leaders have strong communication skills, and I did read I believe it was the first chapter of the book was all about leadership and communication styles. And I can't ever see, like, I just try to think you can't have a leader who can't communicate with his team. I mean, it just simply won't work. Team won't respond, the culture will be off, and it's just such a viable skill to have as a leader.
I've even worked places before that they do one-on-ones to keep that open communication between the leaders and the followers, and those are I've always thought are really beneficial to an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. One-on-ones, that makes completely. Do you guys have any examples of where like bad communication has caused issues within a team?
Yeah, we had a leader in my organization who was very vague on their vision. And as they would describe things they were looking for or wanting done, they left a lot of gray area for the team to fill in. So we would go off and do a bunch of work and come back with the work. And then they'd say, no, that's not what I really wanted. And then they'd come back. We'd go back and do more work. And it was always like we were, trying to deliver things without knowing what it was we were trying to provide. And it was really challenging. And as a result, the team itself got a reputation for not delivering good results. And it wasn't that we weren't working and doing what we thought we needed to, it was that the vision being provided was so vague and poorly communicated. We had no clue what it is that he really wanted.
Yeah, the project scope. Yeah, it makes complete sense. You said something interesting there that your team got a bad rep because of what your leader was basically doing. I didn't actually think of that as beforehand, but that's definitely a bad quality of a leader if what they're doing portrays the team. I mean, you're left that's your accountability as a leader. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they weren't one for owning or taking accountability. That's for sure.
Yeah. Wow. What ended up happening with that situation, if you don't mind me asking?
So I ended up leaving that team because I had plenty of other options, and the leader was really a poor leader. So I learned a lot of things not to do as a leader. And then fortunately, they still work here, but they haven't progressed in leadership, and which is a positive thing. But they also haven't left the organization. So yeah, they're still here, but luckily I don't work with them anymore.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I've run across a lot of lazy leaders, or a lot of and even like laissez-faire style leaders where they're very hands-off. You could burn the building down probably and they wouldn't care. Or that they don't really have a lot of input. They kind of like just run and go with it. And that has always been a big pet peeve for me, because I like to have, even if you are a self-starter, it's nice to have a leader who has a vision, like you were just saying, and they can direct you into some sort of way other than just go.
Would you say that these lazy leaders are lazy because of inexperience? They don't have the experience. Maybe they lack knowledge that they need in terms of being a leader, and also in terms of like company goals?
Sometimes it has been that case for me, and sometimes it has been that they're burnt out on their job. And so,
Right.
you know what I mean? They've kind of given up because they're burnt out on it. They don't have the interest or the passion anymore. They don't care.
Understood.
It's interesting. You also find that sometimes these lazy leaders are often promoted when they don't need to be promoted per se.
It's like it was always a joke in the military that they would promote them out. If you sucked at your job bad enough, you'd get promoted. I mean, but it happened all the time.
Yeah, that always baffles me that there's always some managers and some leaders that it's just obvious they don't belong in these situations. They have just poor qualities, and yet they're still able to run these teams, which just has never made sense.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Let's see here. Anybody else have anything for strong qualities? Anything that you've experienced, or any TV leaders that you see that have specific traits?
I'll add that since this is a communication class, one thing I've observed now that I'm a director is I have to change my communication style, because I have managers that report to me and their analysts that report to them. So I have to be able to have one communication style with my analyst teams and my managers, which is very more technical and detailed. Then I have to have a different communication style when I'm reporting up to the board of directors, and able to talk at the more general business organizational level. And that's not something I anticipated when I first got into this position, is being able to juggle the different communication styles and the formalities, and with the teams, the informality. So it's definitely been interesting trying to juggle styles, and I'm guessing that's a case with TV personalities as well, and others who probably have a public style and then more of a private style.
Yeah, Sean, I can definitely relate to you there. It's kind of like code switching, like how you are at home compared to how you are, at work, and, different superiors that you work with. While I was a recruiter for a light industrial company, I also was a supervisor there. So, and it was predominantly male. So how I would talk to the associates on the floor was definitely different than how I would conduct myself in meetings, with, these dominant figures. So I definitely had to come forward, truly understanding the knowledge of what I was speaking about, coming with my facts, and just pretty much being secure in, my stance, as well as, what were the goals and what I'm doing and what are the associates doing with them. So it is definitely something to juggle. I can definitely say it can be a relief, working with, well, for me, it was more of a relief working with the associates than working with, the leaders of membership, or the leaders, or the members of leadership, excuse me. It was quite a task at times.
You definitely have to know your audience.
Definitely.
That's true. Sean, was it and Ambry, is it hard to switch into those roles? Like, is it hard to adapt to those communication, that different level of communication?
I say, I mean, similar to what Crystal just said, just knowing your audience, you pretty much can pick up on how someone is and just kind of like what the dynamic and what the culture is in the environment. And I think that's what I had to do when I became this recruiter. I was a recruiter for, I was a recruiter for temporary service, and then I came to be the on-site for a light industrial that they were teamed with. So I was pretty much thrown out there. It wasn't anything that I was ever used to. I mostly did clerical work, human resource. So when I was thrown into light industrial, one, that was a new, environment for me. And then when I was thrown into a male-dominant base, that was definitely a new environment for me. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but it's just one of those things where you just pick up and you just feed off of those who are around you.
Very nice. Well, I mean, we're at our mark. If anybody wants to add anything, I'm good.
Well, I wanted to add something just to make sure that we're good on time here. Just in regards to leadership and positive and negative qualities of leadership. What is your thoughts on shared leadership? I know that the text says that shared leadership is is groups and organizational members who share responsibilities for achieving collective goals. And I think this is definitely a good thing to talk about because we are a group. And I feel like within working in a group, it is good to share leadership. So therefore, not one person feels like they hold all the responsibilities while the others don't. Everyone kind of is equally, responsible and held accountable for their share in terms of, what the task is at hand. So therefore, no one feels left out. No one feels as though maybe they're being unheard because we're all a team, we're all in one accord. So what is your thoughts on shared leadership?
I really enjoy shared leadership. I think that it's a very valuable thing to have. I think the more minds that you can get into a group to solve a problem, the better off you're going to be. I think that if one person is overloaded, that's when you often get those managers that are burnt out and they have too much responsibility. So I really love shared leadership, and I think it's something that is strong within corporations and organizations.
I think it depends on the situation. I've been in places, the military is one, where in the infantry, there was no sharing because there often wasn't time. So seconds meant lives, and you made chain of command orders, and that's just how it was. On the flip side of that, I'm now in cybersecurity, and I work with extremely smart, intelligent people. So they know way more often than I do on their specialties. And to not have shared leadership and shared collaboration would be incredibly I'd be incredibly remiss to not include them in all the decisions that we make, and it'd be a big miss. So yeah, it depends on the situation again, but I definitely think given the right skill and time, it's a great thing to do.
Understood.
I personally love the democratic style of leadership where you can be the boss, but you can also ask for the team members' input. I think a lot of the times the team members are really innovative because they're the ones in it every day. So every job that I've had, though, has been shared leadership where maybe one leader is in charge of one division, but they still collaborate with leaders over other divisions. So it still is always basically a team effort. I've never had one that's just in charge running over everybody.
Great.
Awesome. Well, that sounds good to me.
Well,
You three are satisfied, I'm good.
Nice to see
absolutely.
everyone.
I know. Great to put names with faces, and glad to be working with everybody.
Cool. Well, we'll have these every Thursday, it looks like, for the next 4 or 5 weeks or so at 6:30, if that's good for everyone. If not, just shoot a group email and we'll try to adapt.
Yeah. And the email link that you sent, I think that was perfect. Makes it easy for everyone too.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if you guys want
Chris.
me to do it, I'll be happy to do it since I already know how to set it up. That's no problem for me at all.
It's awesome.
Cool. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you next Thursday. We'll try to get the whole group together.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, guys.